Let me introduce you to our workshop From Zero to Hero by Hetti and MacLemon. Okay.
Yeah, welcome. We usually have a limit of 15 people to attend this workshop. Let's a few more, I guess. We have already managed to cover 60, so I guess this still tops it probably. So please bear with us. If you already know what we're talking about, please help us out by taking care of the neighbors who may be struggling. We still need a few more minutes to set up all the VMs for you. So make sure you get on the Wi-Fi. We have a separate Wi-Fi for the workshop. It's called SSH Workshop. Please connect to that one and check if you have a working network connection in the meantime while we do the rest of the magic.
So as our info, this workshop is for OpenSSH on Windows, Linux and Mac useful. So if you use Putty or other tool, Putty or Kitty, this workshop is not suitable for you. So then probably work with your neighbor. And yeah, we'll start shortly. We're still ongoing with the configuration. So we also stated on the info page of this talk in FRAP which commands you should be familiar with in Linux. I will just tell you now which you should know to use.
So most of you, I guess, are familiar with the basics of using a command line like a terminal. Any shell you like is fine, whatever you prefer. I hope you are familiar with highly complex terminal commands like ls and cd and make directory. And hopefully you can use a text editor to edit a file, create a file, save a file. Whatever you like is okay, be it VI, Emacs, Nano, Pico, it's all there. Feel free to use whatever you're comfortable with.
Yes.
Okay, now we got a link on the laptop as well, which is perfect. We'll start in a minute.
So first, for the info for the environment, we set up 2 machines. So you'll connect to the base machine, which is a virtual machine. And from there, we will then connect to our second virtual machine, which is the server. So we'll do all the client stuff on the base machine. And we will do there the config file and how to connect and generate the keys. So you will do everything on this base machine. And you can't break anything on your own computer. You just can break your own account on the base machine. So you can do it easily on the base machine, all the stuff which we're doing in the workshop. We have made accounts for you, for every one of you, but we have to everyone have to pick a number because we have accounts with numbers. So we will just start to read the numbers. So you will start with 1 and then you go up there and just count, and then that will be your account number. So let's start here.
Okay, it goes something like this. We have prepared a base client virtual machine that you can connect to. That's quite easy. And we'll all work from there to a virtual server that we've also prepared for you. The idea behind this is that you don't have to mess with your own config that you might already have. So there's nothing you can kill, trash, or destroy on your own laptop. Feel free to destroy the virtual machine. We have snapshots. But try to keep it respectable so that everyone can reach the goal of the workshop. And yeah, we start by connecting from your terminal to our client base, which is quite simple. The users are all called BalCCon, and the number that you just received, that is your user number. We're number 0 here, and your whatever number you have. So it's SSH BalCCon, your number at, and there's a highly complex IP number.
So at 192.168.190.14 is the server IP.
Should actually be pretty readable on the projector. So this is where you connect to, and you should, yeah, good question. There's a password. The password is also highly complex. It's BalCCon.
So the password is BalCCon in lowercase.
For everyone, it's all lowercase. It's of course not highly secure, but this is a beginner's workshop, so we'll keep it easy.
So everyone managed to connect.
If somebody really wants to connect fingerprints, we have prepared those for you so that you ended up at the correct virtual machine. It's unlikely that you have not, but if you really want to check those fingerprints, here they are. And once you're there, you should have a shell on the base system with a simple prompt.
So is someone here now who is not connected to the server?
We already have 32 connections. That's looking good. Expect a few more. If you have problems connecting or at some point you cannot follow, please raise your hand. It's nothing embarrassing. We all make our typos. We've seen everything in that case. We've made all the mistakes you probably will make all ourselves. We all started at some point.
So if you get some message like permission denied, pub key, so maybe you have a typo in your username.
Yeah.
So it's BalCCon with 2C and not with 2L. As for info.
Okay, 38 connections. How many should we have?
Should be like this.
Okay. Everyone good with the connection? You're on the base? That's awesome. It's all about the base. So we'll start with the most simple type of connection you can use to connect to an SSH server. You have already done it, which is nice. Achievement unlocked. You've reached level 1, which is, of course, you SSH with username at hostname. This can be a hostname, an IP address, a legacy IP address, which is commonly referred to as IPv4, and IP, of course, meaning IPv6. It doesn't matter for this one. So that is easy. To connect to our virtual server, we've provided one. You can, it carries the name SSH-host01. I'll show you. And we'll try to connect to that host. And this is the funny lag when I type on my screen. It maybe takes a moment to appear on the projector. And you try to connect to this one. And since we've never connected, keep in mind, this client is completely bare. There's nothing on it. It's never seen any host on the internet. Of course, you could ask, well, I cannot verify the authenticity of that SSH server. Can you help me with the fingerprint? Are you sure you want to connect? Of course, this is the moment where you ask your system administrator, your system administress, to give you a key that you can verify it so that you know you have connected to the right host. I can switch connections here, actually, and give you the server fingerprints. You should have received one of those. Of course, we always verify the fingerprint when connecting it for the first time. I guess nobody ever has connected to an SSH server and just saying, yeah, we'll be okay anyway.
Using the same password for the server as well as for the client, right?
Yes, on the server we all use the same secure password of BalCCon as well,
Okay.
just to keep it easy for the moment. Anyone got a different fingerprint from the ones we're showing here? Hopefully not. Everyone's good. Okay. So we verified the host fingerprint. That was okay. We type in yes and woohoo. We're asked for a password. Host is nice to introduce himself and say, well, I'm the BalCCon host for the workshop. It's nice. We type in the password and I make a typo, of course. Because I'm using a different password. And after using the correct password, you actually get to connect. And yeah, using yellow on a white screen is not a good idea. That was my mistake. But we're on the server. That is nice. Everyone managed to do that? I think so.
So is someone here who not connected to the server?
29 already did? Question? Yeah?
That's the count of the people which are connected to the server.
That's, yeah.
But okay.
32 people managed to get to this stage. The password for you is BalCCon.
Yeah, the same.
That one. It's really easy. Okay. Now we're trying to make connecting more comfortable with less typing. Less typing means less typos and mistyping. It also means we're all lazy people. System administrators usually are. So we try to keep typing to a minimum. And also to make it more comfortable for us. So we'll start by creating a config file on the client, which means we exit from the server by just typing exit. And if Hetti and me are typing at the same time, that's not a good idea. And you should be, again, on BalCCon at base, like it's shown on the projector now. This is where we start from.
So everyone managed to come back to the client? Looks good.
Okay. We'll have a look at the home directory we have here. There's already a directory called .ssh. If you do an ls-lowercase a or la, you will find that one. Why is that? We did not put that here. It wasn't there before. So since we're nosy, we'll cd into that directory, cd.ssh, and we'll see what is in there. There's a file called known hosts, and it has been created by our SSH client. And in there we find the fingerprints of all the hosts we have ever connected to that SSH now uses to verify the connections. It's a ton of base 64 encoded gibberish, but to SSH this actually makes sense and it's a good thing. And it helps us to verify the connections. So we don't have to do it, SSH will now do it for us. So if we try this again with ssh-host01, just the same thing we just did, but for the second time, and SSH now knows about this host. We've already connected to it and confirmed the fingerprint. So SSH verified the fingerprint by comparing the one from the server to the one in the known hosts file and says, well, they match up. Everything is fine. There's no monsters in the middle attacking my connection. And it's just asking for the password, and you could enter the password and we'll end up on the server. I'll just Control-C out of here because I don't need that at the moment. This is fine. Everyone good so far? Yeah? I see people nodding their heads. Yeah? Questions? Thumbs up, that's good. Awesome. Let's level up. We're in the .ssh directory in our home directory. we will now create a text file, a config file for our SSH client to use. It's called config, and use whatever text editor you like. It may be VI, Vim, Emacs, Nano, Pico, whatever floats your boat, feel free to use it. My choice is VI, and it's really that simple. VI config, and we will create a config file in here, which is, of course, starts empty.
And you have to place it into the .ssh folder.
Yep. And we'll start populating that config file with a few configuration options.
So everyone managed to open the config file in his favorite editor? All right, then we can go further.
Okay, we'll start the first line with a keyword called host. This introduces a so-called host block, which carries all the configuration information for one connection. And the nice thing is you can give a host connection block a nickname. I'll just call it workshop. The name must be unique across your whole config file, and it must, for some reason, make sense to you. You can put anything you like in there. You can name it Hetti if you like, if that makes sense to you. I'll just call it workshop. It's that simple. You can indent the next line. The indentation is not necessary or mandatory like it is, for example, in Python, but it helps to keep things structured, so I'll do it. Question?
What are valid names?
Valid names. Pretty much anything that is ASCII, so you can, you can put dashes and underscores, and I have not tried emoji, but maybe we should give it a try. So you can tell your friends you connected to an SSH host called pile of poo. Okay, the next line, it's called hostname. This is where we put the host name of the machine we want to connect to. This can be either an IP address, a literal IP address, IPv4, IPv6, a host name meaning just a short name like SSH host 01, or a fully qualified domain name, like this one. I personally like to use qualified domain names. Whatever you need to connect to that host is fine. We'll use that one.
But it also can be an IP address also.
Yeah, if you want to use the IP address, feel free to do so. It should work just as well. As a reminder, I personally like to do a port directive here. Of course, port 22 is the standard SSH port. I still like to specify it because it reminds me that many SSH hosts will not listen on port 22, but some arbitrary other port. And you can specify it here for the workshop. Ours does listen on 22. You can omit that line, but it helps to have it there because it's a very explicit way to configure it. And also nice, we have already connected to the server. We never told it a username. Any guesses which username we used? The ones that we already have on our local system. Exactly, that's correct. Since it's unlikely that you will connect to a server where your hostname, your username is the same as on your laptop, you usually specify that username. We'll do that here as well.
Well, if I work as a root?
Yeah, SSHing as root is a very bad idea.
Don't do that.
Strongly discouraged. Your username again is BalCCon and your number. We're number 0, so we will use that. And that's pretty much it we will use for this very moment. So everyone good with that? Okay, I mean it's a lot to type already.
So everyone managed to do his config, or has someone problems with it?
Looking
All
good.
right.
We will save that file and exit the editor and have a look at our .ssh directory again. And there's the config file. And now comes the neat things. I've named my connection in the host block with the nickname of workshop. So I can now do SSH workshop. Even though workshop is not a DNS name that can be resolved, but I can connect to it. And now my SSH client says, well, I cannot verify the authenticity of the connection, but we did already connect to it, and we verified the host key, and we even connected again, and it said it's fine. Why is it asking? Any ideas? Yes, there's an idea.
It's using a different name as the party server, so it presumes it's another host.
That is correct. Your known host file always keeps track of connections by name, meaning host name or IP address, and the port in that combination. And we use the short host name being ssh-host01, but without the domain part. Now we're doing this with the domain part, so SSH thinks, okay, this is different. And it's correct in that assumption. It's still the same fingerprint, so since we already know that by heart, we know it's okay, so say yes. And we can still connect to it. And yeah, with the correct password, I again end up at the server, and this is what should work for you at this moment as well.
So everyone connected with the server with the shortcut, so with the short name.
23. We're still missing a few people here. 25.
Yeah.
Looking good. Again, if you need help, just raise your hand. Hetti will rush over to you and help you find the typos. Yes. I think we're good with everyone by now.
Dann bin ich das mal.
So another nice thing we gain from having a config file is not only less need to type, but also tab autocompletion. You might know this from your shell. You start typing a command, you hit the tab key, and it will start automatically completing the typing for you, which means we can even be more lazy. So I can type SSH and WO for workshop, but not actually typing workshop, but hitting the tab key. And since modern Linux and OS X and FreeBSD and all the good Unices come with tab completion in the shell configured, we get to use it with SSH connections as well. Isn't that nice? And of course, the rest works as we already did. No need to do that a third time. You already know how to do this. Since we're connecting with a password, that password's actually transmitted over the wire from our client to the server. So it's somewhere, our password is floating to the server, server checks the password, and if it's okay, it lets us in. Passwords don't like to travel. So what we'll be using is something called public key authentication, which uses cryptographic keys to connect instead of passwords. And what we need for that is a pair of cryptographic keys. There's usually two types to use with SSH these days. One is called, with a very nice name of ED25519, which is the name of an elliptic curve that is used here. And the other you're probably more familiar with, it's called RSA, after the creators of this algorithm. So we will now create a key pair to use to authenticate. Yeah.
So recommend to, if you make new keys, that you do the elliptic curve keys, so with ED
25519.
25519.
Yeah. If anyone needs to have a help with remembering why it's ED 25519, that's just 255 to the 19th minus 1 is the exponent for it. It doesn't matter, just use it. There's a nice command to generate keys. It's called ssh-key, again, for key generator. And it's wonderful because it generates keys for us. We need to tell it what type of key we want to generate by passing it dash lowercase t for type, and then the ED25519 of the key type. So far, that's easy. Then, of course, we want to save the key file in some kind of file name. And it's commonly used to use -f for file. And we'll pass it a file name of tilde, which is our home directory, .ssh, which is the natural habitat of key files for SSH, and call it, what do we call it? ED25519 underscore workshop. Workshop. Okay. So this will save the key file there. And something that's very important, you'll see why that is important and why I'm being picky on it, is to add a comment with -C. And you put it in quotes here. And that comment is used in a lot of places with SSH, and it has to make sense to you what this key is used for. Like if you, for example, generate a key pair that you use with your GitHub account, you can use like your laptop name and GitHub on there. It has to make sense to you, but you can put pretty much everything in here. So I'll just put BalCCon workshop in here, because that makes sense to me. And you press return, and your computer generates a key pair and asks you for a passphrase. It's not a password, it asks for a passphrase. With keys, SSH always speaks of passphrases. You have to come up with a passphrase now, and this one protects your key pair. Should somebody steal your files, they cannot use them without that passphrase. Fine thing about the passphrase is it stays on your laptop. So think of any password you like. You don't have to tell anyone. Just remember it for the duration of the workshop, and we'll type that in. And of course, since we always make the same typo twice, we get asked again to confirm the password.
It also needs to be 2 times the same passphrase, or does it get the error message? Again.
Okay. I'll just do that again. Yay. Managed to type the same password twice correctly, which is fine.
Achievement unlocked.
And what we get is a SHA-256 fingerprint of the public key from the key pair we just created. The random art image, which is a bubbly representation of the same fingerprint, but more graphical, so human brains tend to find differences in key fingerprints easier because the artwork changes. And also on that line that starts with SHA-256 and the fingerprint, there's also the comment we added when generating the key. So it's already used to present it to us.
So everyone managed to create a key pair with a passphrase. Did someone have problems with creating a key pair with a passphrase?
Anyone need help with that? I think we're looking good.
All right, great.
Okay. If we look into the .ssh directory now, we now have a public key and a private key. We can just look at those by looking at the public key. It's just a plain text file, and it starts with SSH-, which means it's an SSH key. It's ED25519 of the type, the fingerprint, and the comment. That's all that is in that file, and there's no secrets in the public key file, as usual. We can also look at the private key. Of course, with your own private key that you actually use on servers on the internet, don't show them on the projector, like I do now. Since we'll be discarding those anyway, it doesn't matter. And They also look familiar. They begin with begin open SSH private key, some gibberish in base 64, and they have an end, and that's it.
So
Yours
don't,
will look different, but it's just a plain text file. There's nothing more to it.
so don't send them around via email to your friends to get access to the server. So really, every time, go with the file with the .pub extension. So normally, every time the .pub is the public key file.
Keep your private keys private, have backups of those of your laptop, unencrypted storage media. Never give out a private key to somebody else, only the public key. So,
And if it happens, you should like create a new one and delete the old access from with the old key.
yeah. Creating keys is free. Just create as many as you like or need. I personally like to use one key pair for each customer, and one for GitHub, etc. So use as many keys as you like. They're easy to get. Okay, so now to actually use that key, there's two things to it. The server has to know which keys to let in and which not. So we have to somehow tell the server that our key is a good one and it shall be used. So we have to tell the server. How do we get our key onto the server? Any ideas, suggestions? How would you get that .pub file to the server? Secure copy. Good idea. Other suggestions? Yeah.
Write it down, go to the server, and type it in. Because you're extra paranoid.
Yeah, if you like to travel far, that's also always a possibility, of course.
You can do that.
That works.
Have fun with 4096-bit key.
Yeah, RSA is less comfortable now. Just copy pasting it into a remote editor session just works as well. That's also good. And some, if not most, modern Linux OS X BSD systems come with a utility that helps us with that. It's called Ssh Copy Id. And some versions of it are pretty intelligent and friendly. Some are rather really stupid. You have to tell this utility, of course, which key do we pass onto the server. So we give it a parameter of -i for identity. This is the identity file we want to use. And we give it the path of the key file we created. And I really must insist here that you explicitly use the .pub file for the public key, because some of the stupid versions of Ssh Copy Id will not check if you're actually sending a public key. They will happily copy your private key over and you have leaked your key before you have used it for the first time. So be specific. If you're sending a key, always write .pub at the end that you're sending a public key.
You don't want to copy your private key on the server, really not.
Yeah. There's only two kinds of people, those that have copied a private key to a wrong box and those that will do this. So you can guess which type of person I am. And of course, SSH Copy Id needs to know where to put the key. So I can use the nickname I've already created in my config file. And this is the nice thing with SSH config. Most of the utilities that work with SSH respect the config file, and I can just use tab completion, WO tab, and it will autocomplete workshop from my config file. So, and I cannot make a mistake now, because it's all in the config. We have tried and used that. It's already getting more comfortable. So I'll hit return. And it tells me, okay, information, the source of key to be installed is this file. It will try to log in with that. And it asks me for a password. Why is it asking for a password? Which password is that I'm asked for?
The user password.
The user password of where? Of the server, exactly. That's correct. We haven't yet told the server to use the key. We're in the process of telling it. So we type our server password, which is for you, BalCCon. And if it's correct, you should get a similar message like we did here, which says the number of keys I've added to the server is 1. It's great. That matches with what we expect. And it suggests to try logging in by using SSH Workshop. That sounds good to me. That makes sense, because that's a connection we've used. And it also says to check to make sure that only the keys we wanted were added. Okay, so it suggests to connect with SSH Workshop. Anyone got a different error message, or?
Everyone managed to import the key on the server? Does someone have problems with that?
Anyone want help with that? All good?
All right, great. Let's go on.
Okay. So we will try to connect as SSH Copy Id suggested. SSH Workshop, we're already used to that. And it still asks for a password. And it's still the server password that we're getting asked for. Why is that?
Because SSH doesn't know which identity file it should use.
Exactly. We told the server this key is good, but we did not tell our client to actually use it. So, okay, we'll use Ctrl-C to break here and cancel that operation. Make sure you're on the correct machine. You should be on the base again. Yeah? You have the prompt that says, BalCCon your user number at base. So what we can do, of course, is type SSH and tell it which identity file on the command line, which is inconvenient. We don't want to type. So we edit our config file again. And we add a new line here at the end. The parameter is called identity file. You remember we used -i, identity. That's usually the term SSH uses for keys. And now we give it the path where that identity is located in our file system, which is still the same file name we already used, so it's that one. In the config file, we actually want to use the private key. SSH is intelligent enough to figure that out for us, we can be sure. But we also know we want the private key to use here, so we type in this one.
So, like you said, we use for the identity file, we use the private key file, so without the pub extension, because we want to connect with the private, we want to check with the private key.
If you've added this one line, we save that file and exit our editor. And now the server knows about the key. We told the client to use that key. So when we now try to SSH Workshop, something has changed. It's different.
So everyone managed to connect now and get this prompt?
Now you get asked for enter passphrase for key and the name of the key file. And if you enter the passphrase you used when creating that key pair, you now unlock that encrypted key for SSH to use, and it should connect to the server without asking for the password of the server anymore. The prompt is different. It says enter passphrase for key and not just password. And if you enter the correct passphrase for the key, it will connect without using a password and actually without sending a password over the wire. It now has used asymmetric cryptography to authenticate the server to the client to the server, and make that match.
So everyone managed to connect to the server with the key? Seems good. Well, perfect. Let's go on.
23. We're missing a few people. If you want help, just raise your hand. We'll come to you. Everyone connected to the server with the key? Should be pretty much everyone now. Okay. We still have to enter a passphrase, which is still inconvenient. It's still typing. We want to get rid of that. And there's something we can use to actually get rid of that. There's a friendly thing called the SSH agent, and the agent does work for us, which is nice. We can ask it to take care of our keys and pass it on to SSH so that we don't have to do this every time. On most operating systems, this is already completely set up for you. So if you install a current Ubuntu, Debian, Fedora, whatever, Linux or BSD, your window manager usually already does this for you. There's nothing for you to do. This functionality is already there. Same for macOS. I think even Windows with the Ubuntu subsystem does it. On our very special client machine, on our base machine, this has not been done, like on most servers. So we have to do this manually, but that's quite easy. This is just done once on our machine. Your laptop usually has this. So we exit from the server, we're back on the base machine, on the client, and we start a process called SSH-agent, and just hit return. And it puts something on the output in the terminal, which tells us where that thing is listening for connections. And what we do now is we copy those 3 lines and paste them back into our terminal. This is a special case for our workshop. We just take that line, copy, paste, return, and we do that with all 3 lines.
So as said, we execute all these 3 lines, and then the SS agent is configured.
3rd line is pretty optional. So this sets up the shell environment to tell SSH where to find an agent. Again, on your desktop Linux or BSD or macOS, you don't need to do this. If you're running servers where people connect from, you will have to do this and put it in your shell.
So everyone managed to connect to activate the agent. All right.
Yeah, there's a lot of agents listening on that system. That's good. Okay. Now, if you want to connect to a server, you can pass the keys to use to that agent, and it will take care of them. So we can. Fuck, davon noch nicht. Add keys to agent. Ask. Ah, okay. No, also. To add a key to the agent, we use a command called ssh add, and then we tell it which key to add, which is still the same key we want to use. And again, we get asked for the passphrase for that key, because it's still encrypted, and the agent has to take care of it, so he has to decrypt it. And we enter the passphrase for that key once, and the agent tells us, okay, I've added one identity, and it's this one. And again, you see the comment we've put in the key there to remind you, okay, this is actually the right key I wanted to add there.
So
Question?
Quick question. Without this agent, we still need to use SSH add to add the key in the agent which is already running.
Yes. With SSH add, you always pass a key onto the agent, and the agent will take care of it as long as your session lasts, which means if you log out from your laptop or you reboot, the SSH agent dies, and with it all the keys die. So
You have to
but
repeat.
you have to do it only once per session, which is a lot more convenient to use. So everyone managed to add a key to their agent? T-shirt. Okay. Good question. Is there any keyring integration or alternative? As far as I know, OS X does integrate with it, and Ubuntu has a keyring function that can also integrate with the SSH agent. You will most likely already have that set up for you. And if not, it should be pretty easy to find for your specific distribution that you're using. Usually this is the case on most systems now. So, and this time, if we try to connect to the server again, SSH should try to ask the agent about the key that we've configured. And we've already gave it the passphrase, so I would expect that it just connects through to the server without anything else. Let's give it a try. Yes, that worked. We're on the server. No need to type a password, no need to transfer a password, no need to type a passphrase again. It just asked the agent. The agent said, well, yes, I have this key, use it, and go for it. So I can now exit from the server and connect again, and it's just SSH, nickname return, I'm connected. Nothing more to type, no typos, nothing to misconfigure. It's all in my configuration file, and the agent takes care of all the typing for me.
And yeah, for info, this case now you want to run your SSH agent on your client and not on the server, because you want to connect with your client on the server. So if you want to add your key to the agent, do it on your client and start there the agent.
Everyone managed to get this far?
Seems good.
No?
So everyone had a running SSH agent and could connect to the server?
Looking good. Wonderful. So something we still had to do was explicitly tell the agent to add a key. Would be nice if the agent would automatically add new keys that I try to use. Sounds convenient? Okay. Well, we exit from the server, we check that we're back on the base, and you know what's coming, we edit the config file. And since you can put a ton of different things in a config file, we will now do that. And since we probably in the future we'll have multiple host blocks for different servers and connections that we use, like one for GitHub, one for a friend's box, one for the backup machine. We'll have multiple blocks, and it would be convenient to have SSH agent take care of the keys for me without having to be explicitly told every time. To remove redundancy, we will do that. So we will start with the new host block. With the keyword host, we introduce a new block, and the name for that block is just an asterisk. And when we connect with SSH, it evaluates all the things in the config file, and all the host blocks that match that connection will be used. So it will match with the SSH workshop, it will match the host block with workshop. And since the asterisk matches all connections, that will be used as well. So what we do here is we indent the line. And there's a convenient thing called add keys to agent. And that takes 3 different values. It's pretty much yes, no. No is rather stupid to use because no. Okay. Yes is like always just do it. I like to get asked as a user. I like to confirm things. So conveniently we can use ask here, and SSH will then ask me if I want to add it to the agent, and I can say yes or no and use that. And that is pretty much everything we need to add here to make that work. So your config file should now look like this. And again, if everyone's good with typing, we save that file. We still have SSH agent know about our key. So if we just SSH workshop, it will just use that key and there's no difference to before. We can also tell SSH agent to get rid of a key. Okay, we used SSH add to add a key to the agent. Stupidly enough, SSH add can remove identities from an agent as well. It's not called SSH remove, so still SSH add. And you can pass it a capital D, like delete, or similar. And this will remove all the known identities from the agent. You can be specific and just remove one. It doesn't matter if you only have one at the moment. We can just remove them. And the agent confirms, OK, all identities have been removed. I know nothing about this. Since we've changed the config and told it to ask us to add keys automatically to the agent, we can just now say SSH workshop. You've done that a billion times now. And without adding the key to the agent manually, now we automatically get asked to do this. Still asks for the passphrase of the key, because we need to unlock the key. We're connected to the server, so unlocking has worked. And if we exit from the server again, it now should still, SSH agent should now still know about the key and let us connect. Would be nice to know which keys SSH agent knows about, would it? Like if you have 20 keys, which does it currently have in memory? You can do an SSH add dash lowercase l for list. Okay, agent has no identities, it should. Something is wrong. Let's find out what it is. It actually never asked for it, that's weird. Why did it not ask? Okay, I know what the issue was. I've reset the snapshots before the workshop a bit too far. I got a very helpful hint, thank you. I just overlooked that. SSH needs a helping process, which is called SSH ask pass. And I forgot to reinstall it on that machine. I've now done this. So if you try again, you might want to remove the identities again before to make sure that actually works. You can list the identities with SSH add dash lowercase l, and with dash capital D you remove everything. So there should be no identities in there, and if you do SSH workshop, it will still ask again for the passphrase for the key. And let us in, and if we exit again from the server and try again, the agent should now automatically have remembered that thing. If you have set it to ask, it should ask you if you want to do it. I've set mine to yes now just to test. There's, yeah, one of the questions was if you need to restart the agent. That is not necessary. If you have this, let me show you, in the config, if you have this ask here, this will automatically make SSH use SSH ask pass to ask for the key to the agent. And if you connect for the first time in the session, you have to unlock the passphrase for the key. If you exit from the server and just try again, the agent already knows about it without explicitly being told, because you've set it to automatically manage it for you, and it should just work again without you having to manually add that key. To clear things up, why this is not working for most of you, this is most likely a bug in my configuration of the VM. If you do this on your normal laptop setup, this should work and will work, I'm pretty sure. As for now, we can set this parameter to yes, which will automatically and always add the keys to the agent without asking us. At least it worked for me, and I'm using the same setup as you, so it should work for you as well. I personally would not recommend this. You do this on your own setup to set it just to yes, but set it at least to ask. But since this is one of the last things we want to get done, we'll now, for the moment, set it to yes. I'm sorry for the bugs. I have not prepared this properly. That's my mistake. And there's only 2 or 3 little things we want to add to this config anymore. And then we're through, which means we also get to finish in time. And there's still time left for questions. So something that you can run into when using a lot of different keys, because you have a lot of different boxes and connections and you use a separate key for everything, is that you have a proper key setup. It's correctly configured, the server knows about it, you have used this connection and it has worked fine, and for some reason at some point in time you want to connect and the server says, well, nope, and starts refusing your connection. And you check and you double check and you know it's correct, you have done use of this. The way SSH works when connecting with keys is it offers one key after the other to the server that it knows about. So if you have a lot of keys, it starts adding, connecting to the server. Server says, well, give me a key. Your client says, here's a key. Server says, that's not one I know about. Give me another one. And after the 3rd or 5th key, most servers say, well, you don't seem to have a working key. Go away. So now you have a properly configured connection that does not work. And there's a way to tell SSH to only use the one key you have configured and none of the others, which is nice because it's a lot more privacy, because otherwise you're leaking public keys. I mean, that's a privacy thing, not a security thing, but still, I want my SSH connections to keep working even if as I go along and add keys and add connections. So on the base, on the client, when we add the config, we already have these 2 blocks, one for the workshop host, which is a specific block, and the generic with the host asterisk. There's one line we add. And it's called Identities only, which means our SSH client will only offer the one identity we have explicitly configured for that connection. And this will save you from running into a problem that's really annoying to debug, and especially if you need to connect now and it doesn't work. And so this will save you in the future. You can thank me later. And some security settings I recommend using for everything. There's something called agent forwarding. You're already using the SSH agent to keep track of your keys on your local machine. And you can actually expose that agent to a server. It's called agent forwarding. I highly recommend you never do this because you give a server access to your private keys, which is a really bad thing to do. And if you, for some reason, connect to a attacking server, a bad server that wants to annoy you and steal your keys, and you have agent forwarding, it will get your keys, or at least will be able to sign something with your keys. So we put that line in with forward agent no, and since that applies to all the connections, we'll not be able to use agent forwarding. And I recommend you do this and never use agent forwarding. If you use SSH that much that you will need jump hosts and like connect to one host, connect to another, and have multiple hops in that connection. There's other ways to do this. This is pretty much beyond the scope of the workshop we intend here. If you want to learn about that, come to me afterwards. I'm happy to tell you about this as well. As for the intended stuff we want to cover in this workshop, to give you a good basis to work upon and to build upon, we're done, we're through. You know how to use a config file to make things in life for you comfortable and easy. It's always nice to have a config file because you can copy paste from your own config and just create another host. And as we've seen in my talk before, mine is grown to 1,200 lines. And I've checked in the meantime, yes, there's some cleaning up to do for me. So maybe schedule that for once a year to clean up your config files. That probably helps you get to less than 1,200 like me. And if everything has worked for you, and you can connect with the agent without typing any passwords, then you've reached the goal we want to have. And congratulations to that. And we also have put a commented config file in the conference management system. So if you go to the page of this workshop, you can download that config file. If there's something missing from it, we might add and update it.
So
it should be fine.
Actually, the config file is not downloadable because it's not on the server. So
okay, it's not yet there.
we will tell them that they fixed it, and then there will be the config file available, and you can download it. It's commented, and you can just reuse it for your own work.
Ah, yeah, okay. Huh? Sure.
Yeah,
okay,
it's a 404 not found.
We uploaded the file already, but we need to poke the organizers to generate the site for it again, so that this file is actually included. If that for some reason does not happen in the near future, don't hesitate to poke me or Hetti via Twitter or whatever. Yeah, I'll just tweet a link to that file on my own server, and if you're not on Twitter, just poke me with an email. If you Google for MacLemon or search on your favorite search engine for me, you should be able to track me down on somewhere. Just poke me and I'll send you that file.
So all in all, great that you followed our workshop and you did quite well and didn't have a lot of problems. That was great. I mean, you can now connect to a server, you can use SSH, you know the basics, and you can make your own config. And yeah, thanks from our side, and hope you enjoyed it. And yeah, if you have some questions, you can ask us now or come to us later, and we are glad to help you.
Questions?
No. It's not a question, it's a suggestion to both you and others that you may know about it. You can include a config file in another one, so you can clean them up much more easily and have them split up, so you don't have to have all 1,500 lines in one config file.
Yeah, that is correct. So, SSH has added the ability to include config files in other config files with, I think it was 7.4 or 7.5, a very recent version, in fact. So you hopefully have a recent enough version to make use of that. That's a good idea, good suggestion. I will certainly apply that to my own configuration, because there's a lot of work left. Are there any other questions that we can answer you at this moment, or maybe later over a beer?
Well then, thank you very much for attending. We hope you learned something, and yeah.
Thanks.